Any comments?
No, I don't wanna retire. That's not right. I mean,
Keep it going.
look at all of us still sitting here alive. Our name won't even get on it. That doesn't make any sense. Ugh, I'd rather spend $100.
Yeah, absolutely, I think everybody
I vote with Mary Jo.
would, yeah.
I want my name on there.
Not yet, Mary
But not
Jo.
anytime soon.
Not even, well, not, I'm not getting a load up today, but
We got the money, don't we? Don't we have
if
it?
we don't, we will have by then.
And I have an announcement today.
Okay.
Today is Mary Ellen's birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
On Channel 4.
And Scooby-Doo on Channel 2.
Second verse.
All right.
You ever heard that? You ever
Do I
heard
give
that?
this back to Mary Jo? But yeah, I think we should spend the money for the new flag.
I think we're having,
We got this
I
stuff.
think we're having a social review today, don't you? Oh, there she is. We just missed her singing happy birthday to Mary Ellen.
Oh, okay. Happy birthday, girl. I just signed your name to this card. I
We're
forged
close.
it. Oh, good.
Have a seat.
Did you walk in the door? Did you?
Just to let Beverly and Michelle know, Sunday, January 8th, we'll be moving to our old classroom beside the cafe, and we'll meet at 9:45, starting January 8th. So if you come wondering, just so you know, if you come down one Sunday and we're not in here, we're back over there.
Okay, thank you.
So keep everybody up to date. Our new books are here. Be sure to pick up one as you leave today.
Could
And
I say something else?
Sure.
And I'll sit down and shut up. I had a guy bring this up here to the room. It's, I got everybody, flowers today for the Thanksgiving table.
oh, well, thank
You'll
you.
get one when you leave.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, you're very kind.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
That's so
I like to
kind.
spend money.
I like flowers too.
Yes, thank you. You're welcome.
That's very special, Mary Jo.
You know what, y'all are special, and I always seem like I'm on the receiving end instead of the giving end, so. Anyway, God bless y'all. Have a
Well,
wonderful Thanksgiving.
We hope everyone here has a wonderful Thanksgiving. This week should be a Thanksgiving week, and so forth. And I hope that your Thanksgiving Day goes well. We're going to continue our study. 2 weeks ago, I asked the question, how well do you know your Jesus? And we were talking about how well you knew your Jesus, and we talked about there's a bunch of different Jesuses in the world. The Jehovah's Witness has their version of Jesus. The Mormons have their version. The Muslims have their version. And we, as I guess Baptists, have our version of Jesus. Well, today I want to change the question is, what do you believe about your Jesus? And the reason is the word believe occurs 98 times in the book of John. 98 times. Today, in our passage in John chapter 11, I want you to mentally count the number of times Jesus says believe to Mary and Martha. Okay? Just kind of keep an eye out for that word believe as we go through the scenario here of Lazarus. Now, a lot of people say this is Jesus' greatest miracle. I hate kind of putting that because, let me say, that blind man that Jesus gave his sight to, that was pretty awesome to him. I mean, yeah, that's pretty awesome. And, you know, there's several other instances, and I think those people are very thankful and thought that was a great miracle. I think it gets the one here of Lazarus gets pinned is because so many people saw what happened. There's many, if you go look in the church fathers and look through some of their writings, a lot of the church fathers talk about raising Lazarus. So it's very well known, very well documented of what happened here. And I think that's one of the reasons it gets so much attention. But beginning in the Gospel of John, chapter 11, we'll go to look at verse 1. I want to pick a couple of verses before we actually get to our lesson in verse 7. But verse 1, it says, "Now a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha." Now, Bethany is very close to Jerusalem. And we know, as we'll read later on, Jesus is about 20 miles away. Not far. But Jesus is real close. He's not far. And Lazarus gets sick. And Jesus had been to Mary and Martha's house and Lazarus many times. Then let's go look at verse 4. When Jesus heard that Lazarus was sick, he said, "This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." So Jesus is saying, right off the bat, he's not dead in the way that we think of death, but it's for the glory of God. And he goes back to the blind man. He's been blind since birth. And because of the glory of God, Jesus comes and heals him and gives him his sight back. Now, why did this man have to be blind for all those years? It's part of God's plan that Jesus Christ and God would be glorified. The same here with Lazarus. Why did Lazarus have to die? For the glory of God. He tells us it's for the glory of God. In verse 5, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Now notice, John calls out each one. Jesus loved them. So when he heard that he was sick, he stayed 2 more days in the place where he was. Now remember, he's 20 miles away. It's not that far. But Jesus is hanging out. Everything is in God's time. Then after this, he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." Now, with Bethany being so close to Jerusalem, the disciples did not want Jesus to go because the last time he was there, they tried to stone him. So they know that the Sanhedrin, the Sadducees, Pharisees, and scribes are out to get Jesus. And they're trying to keep him away, and Jesus says, "We're going to go there." Verse 8, the disciples said to him, "Rabbi, lately the Jews sought to stone you, and you are going there again. They're like, the last time you were there, they tried to kill you, and you're going back, into the den. And then in verse 11, it goes through, he says, these things he said, and after that he said to them, our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him up. So Jesus is using sleep, and he's thinking he's just like taking a nap. Then the disciples, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get well. In other words, whenever you don't feel good, a good nap, always makes you feel better. So they figure, if he goes to sleep, he'll be okay. He'll be just fine. Verse 13. However, Jesus spoke of his death, but they thought he was speaking about taking rest in sleep. In other words, they thought he was just taking an extra long nap. They didn't comprehend. Then Jesus said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead. They weren't understanding what was going on, and so Jesus had to explain it to them once again. Lazarus is dead. And I am glad for your sakes that I was not there. Now, a lot of people have a hard time with this because they don't understand. Jesus is glad he's not there, and he's glad Lazarus is dead. But if you know the rest of the story, you understand it's all about bringing attention to Jesus, who he is, and what happens afterwards. And I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, that you may, there's the word, believe. Nevertheless, let us go to him. So we see the word believe. It's about believing. What do you believe about your Jesus? Do you believe he has power over death? Verse 16, then Thomas, who is called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. Now, Thomas gets a bad rap, doubting Thomas and all that. But here, Thomas is willing to go with Jesus, and if it need be, he's willing to die for him. That shows dedication. Now, Thomas is also called Didymus, which in Greek means twin. If you read the writings of the early church fathers, you'll find out Thomas looked exactly like Jesus. You would have thought they were twins. That's the reason everybody had to keep up with exactly who was Jesus and who was Thomas. If you didn't know, you would get the wrong one. That's the reason Judas Iscariot had to go kiss Jesus, because Judas would know which one was Jesus and which one was Thomas.
Oh, that makes sense.
I mean,
I never knew why he had to kiss him.
right, which one was Jesus? Was it Jesus or was it Thomas? If you've ever seen identical twins, I mean, it's hard to tell them apart. And, I've heard parents, a friend of ours has identical twins, and when they were younger, they put special bracelets on them so they'd know which one was which, so they wouldn't get them mixed up till they got older, and then you could tell personality-wise they're different, even though they look identical. And so forth. But that's, you know, part of the thing is, you know, Thomas is willing to go and die with Jesus. And, you know, how much identical, it must have been very, very identical looking because of the fact that he actually got called his twin. Verse 17, so when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now the reason this is significant is if you read Josephus, you'll find out that Jews believed the Spirit hung around for 3 days. And anytime in those 3 days, the Spirit could come back in the body and they'd wake up. Now, you know, I'm not so sure if it's that, or, you know, in those days they didn't have heart monitors and all the fancy equipment that we do today. So someone they thought was dead may not really be dead. They just have a real faint pulse or something, and they just spring back to life. You know, it happened a lot in that time. But after 3 days, the Jews considered them dead. It's just, you can't come back. So that was one of the reasons Jesus waited 4 days, was he didn't want, if he'd come back in 3 days, oh, the Spirit come back in him. Waiting 4 days, then it was a miracle. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles away. So we see here Jesus is putting his life in danger by coming back to Bethany. Because once the religious leaders find out he's there, they're going to go looking for him. And many of the Jews had joined the women around Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. So now we have all the friends and neighbors and relatives coming around to join them. In verse 20. Now Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. So we see Martha takes off and she goes to meet Jesus. But Mary was sitting in the house. Verse 21. And now Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. See what confidence she had in Jesus. If you'd just been here, he wouldn't have died. In verse 22, but even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. She says, if you'd have been here, but I just know you're the one. God will give you anything you ask for. That shows faith. Verse 23, Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Now, she understands the Old Testament that at some point in the future, everybody's going to get up. There's going to be a resurrection. He talks about in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, you know, everybody's going to wake up and they're going to go, the rapture of the church. And in verse 25, Jesus said to her, and there's the phrase, I am. Meaning, I am God, I am Jesus, I've always been here, I'm eternal. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. and whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? 3 times Jesus uses the word believe in verse 25 and 26. Do you believe? If you believe, who believes? Folks, do you believe this? Do you believe Jesus is the resurrection and the life? Verse 27, she said to him, Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is come into the world. So she says, excuse me, I know who you are. I know you're the Christ, the Messiah. You're the Son of God who has come into the world. And when she had said these things, she went her way and secretly called Mary, her sister. Now, why she did this secretly, we don't know.
I think Mary was mad at him. I do. Why else would she, I mean, she was always at his feet.
Right, she's the one that
Martha was the one
anointed.
in the kitchen. Mary was always right there. If Jesus took a step, she was there.
Right,
And now, she knows he's there and she's not going out there to see him. What does that tell you? But, I mean,
right. I think there's some tension in that relationship because of, what Mary had done. And she said, the teacher has come and is calling for you. And as soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came to him. All it took was, Jesus is asking about you. And she jumps up and runs to him.
do you think she just didn't know he was out there? What do you think?
It's you don't know. I mean, there's a crowd of people. Martha runs out, and but she comes back secretly to talk to Mary, and I don't know if Mary and Martha had some. If Martha understood more about what was going on with Mary emotionally, it could have been an emotional thing because Lazarus was their brother, and you know how it is when you lose a sibling like that. So, it's hard to say, but now Jesus had not yet come into the town, but was at the place where Martha met him. So Jesus hadn't even got to Bethany, and he's already being greeted.
And Mary was surrounded by people, other mourners, and people trying to comfort her. So she may have been distracted.
It could be. I mean, there's a lot of people here. It tells us. Then the Jews who were with her in the house and comforting her, when they saw that Mary rose up quickly and went out, followed her, saying, she is going to the tomb to weep there. So that they didn't know where Mary was going. She didn't know that the mourners didn't know. They're trying to figure out, so they think she's going to the tomb to weep. Then when Mary came where Jesus was, she saw him. She fell down at his feet. And remember, she washed Jesus' feet with her hair previously. So, as Mary Jo alluded to, Mary was constantly with Jesus and around Jesus whenever he was there. Saying to him, Lord, if you had been there, my brother would not have died. Exactly what her sister said. Lord, if you'd just been here, Lazarus wouldn't have died. Once again, they had confidence. Therefore, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her weeping, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. Folks, Jesus had an emotional bond with this family. And he, it's hard to understand him being God and him being man at the same time, but he was, and this was very touching that all these people were weeping over the death of Lazarus. He must have been very well respected in the town. And in verse 34, and he said, "Where have you laid him?" Now, let me say this. Jesus knew where he was. He was interacting with the people. Let me say this. Jesus could have healed Lazarus 20 miles away. He didn't have to be there. He's there for Mary and Martha is the reason he's there. And also we'll see another reason. But Jesus could have spoke remotely and Lazarus would have got up. They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Verse 35, Jesus wept. Folks, Jesus has compassion for you and I. He had compassion that day for Mary and Martha, and he has the same compassion for you and I today if we're one of his. When we're troubled and we're down, he weeps with us. Then the Jews said how he loved him. And some of them said, "Could not this man who opened the eyes of the blind just a few days earlier also have kept this man from dying?" So the Jews are, beginning to understand who Jesus is and the power he has. He said, he just fixed this blind man a few days ago, and now why couldn't he keep him from dying? They don't understand. Verse 38, then Jesus, again groaning in himself, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Now, a lot of times they found caves and they would put stones in front of it because as the body decayed, it didn't smell well. And I'll put that as nice as I can, because if you've ever been around bodies that have begun decaying, they don't smell good at all. And they laid a stone against it in verse 39. And Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Now this got their attention. Martha, the sister of him who was dead, said to him, "Lord, by this time there is a stench," or bad smell, "for he has been dead 4 days." And they're talking about, bodily decay. And Jesus says to her, "Did I not say to you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God?" Once again, he's asking, do you believe? He wants to know that they believe. 41, then they took away the stone from the place where the dead man was lying. So they moved the stone. Folks, an act of obedience in faith. God, Jesus said move the stone, so they moved it. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. And I know that you always hear me, because of the people who are standing by, I said this, that they may believe that you sent me." Once again, what do you believe? Do you believe God sent his Son for your sins? Now when he had said these things, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." Now notice he called Lazarus by name. You know, if he hadn't have been very pacific, every dead person in the area would have got up. I mean, he could have said, come forth, and, 600 people could have jumped up out of the grave. He called Lazarus by name. And notice he didn't say, Lazarus, do you think you want to come out? He gave him a direct command. He said, come forth. He wasn't asking, he told him what to do. Verse 44. And he who had been dead came out, bound hand and foot with grave cloths. So he got up. Now, as we know, they wrap people up and put spices and stuff on them. We notice when Jesus was resurrected, his grave clothes stayed in the tomb. But Lazarus got up, grave clothes and all, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, loose him and let him go. So Jesus goes over there and, they go over there and they have to unwrap him, take all this stuff off. Now, can you imagine what's going on? Verse 45, then many of the Jews who had come to Mary had seen the things Jesus did, believed in him. Folks, a lot of people believed in Jesus that day. That was all for the glory of God. Sometimes, it's hard to understand God's perfect timing, but it's there for a reason. And Jesus showed up 4 days later to bring about the resurrection of Lazarus, but a lot of people got saved that day because of what Jesus did in raising Lazarus from the dead. And that's why it's important that we ask the question, what do you believe about your Jesus? Do you believe he's the Son of God? Do you believe he's the resurrection and the life? Do you believe one day you're going to get up just as Lazarus did and have a glorified body, soul, and spirit that'll live together in heaven? It's important that we understand that Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. And folks, we need to believe that as part of, our salvation is, do we believe that he's the resurrection and the life? Okay, does anyone have a question or comment?
One comment that I have about the stone in front of the cave, it has also been suggested that it kept animals out of the grave. or
Yes,
out
it
of the
kept-
cave. Wild animals.
Wild animals and grave robbers.
Grave robbers.
Yeah, some people, that's one of the things in Poland was they had to worry about grave robbers. Because sometimes people would put a piece of jewelry, like someone's favorite necklace, or someone's favorite bracelet, or favorite ring, would put that in the casket, and people would know that, and they would come and steal it, and then sell it, at the pawn shop. So yeah,
But they also stole the body as a teaching tool for the medical people.
yeah,
They
so,
took the whole body to,
yeah,
they sold it.
so, yeah, there's various reasons why you protect the body, not only from wild animals and grave robbers and stuff like that, so, yes. And that's the same thing they did with Jesus. They put a stone in to keep people from stealing it. Of course, everybody said that somebody came and stole it, but they didn't, so. But
We had to
anyway.
go to the grave, the very grave of Lazarus. And you go in at ground level. And then you go down steps about as far as from me to where you are. You go down into the earth, and that's where his tomb was. So I guess the stone was up at the ground level, but they had dug down, quite a ways, because the steps went down.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody wanted to go down there, but I did, and several of us did. And, it was just amazing.
Oh,
Did you get to go there when you went to Lazarus' tomb?
no, we did not go to Lazarus' tomb.
But
We
as
went
we're studying
by
this lesson,
The
it's-
area, but we did not go to Lazarus' tomb.
Mhm.
But it's, going to Israel makes the Bible just jump out. Just that much more. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons to protect the grave at this particular time, just as it is today in Poland. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I hope everyone got their crossword puzzle. And okay, Mr. Brooks, I have got your match.
My what?
Your match.
My match?
You're gonna sweat this whole week.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Talk about a box.
There you go. There you go. Would you hand these two to,
I'll put Joel on this, he likes to do
Give
this.
me Ellen.
okay, let me explain this.
Let me have Ellen. Give me one bit Ellen.
She done
She had to
flew the
go
coop,
do her other duty.
do her many other things. Let me explain this to you. This is a word search. And I put the words we're looking for from John chapter 14 in alphabetical order. That's one help. Number two, I'm going to give you a hint. The word ruler and the word peace are in the upper left corner. If you hold it like this.
I already got that.
Okay, so I'm giving you two of them. Ruler and peace are in the upper left corner. Now, after you find these words and you circle them, there's some leftover letters. The leftover letters, there's a word in there. It's called the mystery word. It's not on the list. It's the mystery word. Can you figure out the mystery word? And I gave you a hint, the mystery word has more than 8 letters in it. Now you may find the mystery word while you're looking for the other words. I had a gentleman that snuffed out the word about halfway through there. So there's a mystery word in there which is not on the list, and it has more than 8. So can you find these these words? Let me say this. Holy Spirit is considered one word. I am the way is considered one word. So there's actually phrases that are counted as words And some of them kind of jump out at you, like ruler and peace is in the upper left corner. There's a couple of others in there that you can look at and probably get. But the thing is, can you find the mystery word? And it's either left, right, up, down, or diagonal,
Or backwards.
okay?
Yeah, back.
And Michelle's probably already figured it out.
Yeah, circle on one that's back up.
She circled it backwards, didn't she?
But anyway, we know that Michelle and Carrie have these unique abilities that none of the rest of us possess.
They'll lose theirs like I lost mine. My ability.
But anyway, I thought, since this will be the last lesson of this section, I put this one together to see if you can find the mystery word, okay? And as well as the other words. I think if you get the first half of the words, you'll begin to figure out where the mystery word is, and you'll probably figure it out by the time you get half of the words found. I did it, and I got down, after I got through mansions, I figured out what, I found those all the way through mansions, and then once I circled mansions, I figured out where the mystery word was. It kind of jumps out at you. So, but anyway, like I said, there's several gives me. Ruler and peace is in the upper left corner, and so forth. So hopefully, and these words are in the lesson, the first, John 14 verses 1 through 14. And then the first Sunday in June, we'll start in our book. So please be sure and pick up a book on your way out. Okay? Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, update on the prayer list. How is Rory Rogers?
He's doing better.
Good. And how is your
Sister-in-law.
sister?
She's had another fall or two, so,
Oh no.
from the stroke, full strokes. Once you have one, it seems like. they
Yeah,
keep coming.
once whatever it is, it seems to be reoccurring. Okay, we'll continue to pray for her. I was trying to think who else is on the, let's remember, Ruth and Ken. They're having an anniversary. And I'm getting ready to get to Walter. But remember, Ruth and Ken's having an anniversary this month, so let's, send them a card, give them a call,
Did
whatever.
you sign the card?
Yes,
Okay. Did I get it back? I can't remember.
I thought
I think so. I think you did. You go ahead and.
Now, how is the man of the house, Mr. Walter?
He's tired. Just can't do anything, he says. He just don't have any energy. He wants to sleep all the time. He's just bearing under whatever it is. I mean,
Is he in pain?
yeah, he's in pain in his neck and his shoulder. They're gonna do a MRI on the 28th after Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's the 3rd. He's got so many, I've got a calendar for it. But they're gonna do an MRI on him for his shoulder and his chest, neck, in that area to see if it's spreading. And they're sending him to a cardiologist.
Okay.
Just, we continually go to doctors and they don't tell you much, but at least they're notifying all of it, of what's going on. He's on medication and he's getting off, I think it's the 28th when he gets to, yeah, he's gonna get to coma again on the 28th. Yeah, 28th is gonna do that, so.
Okay, well, let's remember keep Walter and Beverly in our prayers as they go through this together. It's a tag team event, so let's remember both of those. And let's remember Grace, she's not, Trot, she's feeling a little under the weather today and wasn't able to come and be with us. So let's remember Grace as well,
Gracie
and
had
Walter.
put her granddaughter on there too last week,
Yeah, Heather,
Heather.
yes. Is Heather doing better?
What about Heather?
That seems to be working out some. I didn't realize when you was talking to me when you said Heather, you're talking about Grace's granddaughter. Yeah. Her dad's gonna move in with her. And that'll help the situation some there.
Okay.
But that's yeah, it's a messed up situation, I'll just tell you that.
It always is.
Yeah.
It always is when things don't work out and there's tension between them. And particularly if kids are involved, it's never a good thing. It's
Well,
never.
the thing about this, and I think we probably all wonder the same thing, most of the time the kids take up for the mother. In this case, the kids are taking up for the daddy, and that sort of upsets Gracie really bad. But they're not really kids anymore, they're sort of growing up, you know.
Yeah.
Comes out of school.